Welcome back to the Jin's Treasure. Today we're gonna do, you guessed it, another pendant wrapped, awkward shaped crystal. I chose this Amazonite just because the interesting band that it has going across here, it just spoke to me. And without further ado, let's get into it. So, just like always, we're gonna take a 20 gauge wire, about, maybe because of the tall shape of the stone, we'll do a little bit more than the general hand's length. And that's for the 20 gauge wire. And then I'll take about an arm's length of the 24 gauge wire. This one's a little bit too much. I'll just clip it off there. And just wrap the rest of that around the spool. And to begin, we're going to start by kissing the 2 points of the 24 gauge wire together, and then just sliding all the way down to the bottom, which is equidistant halfway for the full length of the wire. We're going to take that little loop and just hook it to more or less, doesn't have to be exact, but try to do your best to be as close to what appears to be the middle as possible. So I like to keep the two tips kind of visually symmetrical and then get an idea of where that middle point is. And then as you can see, so the loop, we've kind of tightened it really, and we're just going to slowly begin wrapping around. Correct. I noticed that some of my last videos, the focus, if I pull away, it gets a little blurry. But as you can see, I've got a few good bands started already, just going slow. It's kind of like going for a run. You don't want to start immediately with a full sprint. You just want to do a quick warm-up jog, going slow. And so that's probably about 10 or so bands on the one side. I'm gonna tighten up the beginning end on that side and then just reverse, start wrapping on the other side. Now, I said 10 bands, and that's just based on the size and shape of the stone that I'm working with. It could be less, it could be more, depending on the stone that you're working with at home. So the numbers are not so important. But as you can see, now that I have a few bands wrapped already, I can go a little bit faster. And I think I'll stop right about there. Just give a little eyeball estimate. This one's going to be unique because of the length on this side is longer than the length on this side. This is the shorter length. So I'm actually not going to want to keep it symmetrical. I'm going to do a few more wraps on this side, just so I could place where the middle of the wire here is going to be more or less the middle here. And so the reason is that there's a shorter length to get, say, to here than it is to here. It will be longer on this side. So with that, I'm just gonna kind of shape it slightly off skew of the center, and then just place the stone in there. And then first of all, let me show you, it's kind of a cubular shape, but obviously it's got that awkwardness to it because it's just a tumbled stone. It's not been cut and shaped specifically. Actually, I kind of missed the mark a little bit. Originally, I had the indent there, and I'm gonna straighten that out and then start again. So now the sides are gonna be more or less symmetrical to each other. And then from there, I'm gonna do my best to keep this portion, the bottom portion of the wrap, tucked under that tip using kind of my middle finger here, and then my thumb as well, and then my index finger is on the back side, just kind of holding it, pinching it in place. And then from there, I'm gonna swing the right end of the 24 gauge wire over to the other side. I'm actually gonna switch up my fingers, so now you can see my index finger is actually on the top. And then from there, just carefully wrap around. We'll go 3 times. And then carefully switch it around so that now you're on the reverse side. And we're gonna do the same thing. Just bring the other 24 gauge wire over and across. And then wrap 3 times just to get a sense of where we're at. Probably end up doing a few more wraps, but just want to stop here and make sure that everything looks good. I'm going to do the what I call the longhorns, bending them outwards. That way I have more room to wrap around. And then right now it feels pretty snug. Well, not so snug, but it feels like the stone's gonna fit in there nice and easy. And from that point, I'm ready to continue. So I'll do 1, 2, 3, I'll do 4 wraps. I'll do 5 wraps. I'll do 5 wraps on this side. And then, I did. How did I do that? I actually used the wrong wire, so I'm gonna reverse all of that. It's funny, I kind of been doing that lately. What did I do? Oh, I see. So I actually did it twice. I'll take the stone out for now and unwrap all this. The reason why I'm unwrapping this is because that was actually, no wait, that portion was okay. So I'll put the stone back in place just to funny how I did that. So really, instead of this back wire coming across, it should have been this wire coming across. So I'll just fix that right now. And what was it? It was like 3 plus 5, I think it was. So it was like a total of 8 wraps. And I actually kind of lost track of the numbers. I wasn't really counting, but I'm just eyeballing. I want to make sure that the bands go enough to go just around this corner here. So I think one more should do it. And then I'll reverse over to the other side, kind of doing my best to keep the stone in place. As I said, it's not very snug right now, but that's all right. As we continue wrapping, it will get tighter. And I'm gonna have to, actually these, if you can see, the wire's kind of jagged and kinked right now. So I'm gonna use the flat part of the pliers and just pinch down and gently massage. It doesn't have to be perfect. can see that there's still a few ripples, but just enough that I can get it so I can continue the work. And then continue on by doing the wraps. What was that, about 3? So as you can see, it's already a little bit wonky there, but nothing too major. I can continue on. And then from there, I'm going to get the right end of the wire and swing it over a second time. And this is the point where you really want to use your fingers to push in tightly on the stone, so that way it's really locked into place. And then you can really pull tight with your left hand. If you're lefty, maybe you're reversing this, and that's okay too. Some people are left-handed, some people are right-handed. But with the wire wrapping hand, you really want to pull tight. That's what's really important. Alright, so I've got 2 bands across. On the one side, I'll flip it around, and then with the bottom 24 gauge wire, I'll wrap it around once more. And by now, it's starting to feel really snug and secure in the top. I don't have to pinch and press against the stone so hard with my middle finger and my thumb, but I will continue to press downwards pretty strongly, just to keep the stone in place. And I'm also with my middle finger in the back, I'm doing the best I can to keep the bottom of the wrap kind of tucked in, so it's really, these 2 fingers are pushing upwards and this finger is pushing downwards, trying to keep it all together, all in place. And I'm gonna do just enough wraps so that now I've used up all the jagged wire, and this is all more smooth now. And it is more or less symmetrical, both sides are symmetrical to each other. So then I'll swing that around and then take, once again, the wire from the right end, and from here I can adjust my fingers so I'm not so much focused on pushing it down at the top. I'm really more focused on pushing this inwards and the thumb inwards on the other side as well. And that's so that when I wrap around here, it will really tighten this end really nice and close to the crystal so that it's not going to be loose in there. I'll just do a few wraps. I think I'll stop just before the curve, just before this curve here, and then swing it around once more. So then I'll flip over to the other side, and the same thing, really pushing inwards towards the crystal, a little bit pushing downwards as well, just so that the crystal doesn't slide up out the top. And then I'm just doing as many bands as it takes to kind of catch up and once again keep it symmetrical. And then I'm ready to swing this wire across once more. And as you can see, as I wrap, the wire kind of tends to, around this top part, it wants to slide upwards. Do your best to just push it down and keep it down as much as possible. And it looks like I did clip off a little bit too much of the 20 gauge wire, but that's all right. More is always better than less. In the world of wire wrapping, that is. I suppose in other things too. and then from there switch it around, and then with my thumb you can see I've pinned down the wire once it's come across, and that way the wire doesn't jump upwards as well. Kind of going into that whole keeping it down. And from here I'm going to be wanting to wrap just as much up so that these two sides can meet equidistant at the top. So I'll do a few more wraps. Maybe one more. That looks about right. And then do a few more on this side as well. And as you can see, there is this little gap here that wasn't intentional, but that's just kind of working with the awkward shape of the stone itself. Because it's so round here. It's not like it's not flat, and it's also not like a clear angle. It just kind of gently curves outwards, and that's the reason why there's this gap here. And with that done, I can wrap around the top with both ends, so it looks like that. And then from there, I'm going to take this 24 gauge wire, tuck it underneath this one, this 20 gauge wire underneath, and then over the top around. And then tighten those two together, and then I'll do the same thing, just flip it around, reverse, and then the same thing, tuck it under and then over and around, and pull that tight. I'll do one more. And you want to be careful to make sure that this one stays on top and it doesn't cross underneath this wire, because if they crisscross, then it will it won't look as aesthetically pleasing, and you can also feel the bumps of it where the wire has to wrap over where it's already been wrapped. So what I mean by that is I'm going to take this wire and tuck it around the top, and careful not to wrap underneath this wire. You can see what I mean there. So I'll stop at 2 each. Looks good, looks tight. And from here, the stone's not going anywhere. And we can pull these upwards. I'm gonna clip this one off because it's a lot more than I need. I can use it later for like earrings or something. And then for this one, still a little bit too much. I'm just kind of eyeballing that. Generally, the rule for what I've been saying is about 2 digits of the finger's length. And then from there, we'll take the flat part of the pliers, pinch down and bend to create this 90-degree angle. And then from there, with the rounded fingered part of the pliers, curl it backwards in the opposite direction from where we did the 90-degree bend. And so what I call this is like the Q, capital Q, because you've got your circular O and then the little Q-tip. And I'll just continue. Looks like I made it to about 3 this time. And then that Q-tip is tucked in the bottom there. And I'm gonna bend the loop now so that it's faced the way it's supposed to be. You wanna have it like this as opposed to like this. So that way when the necklace passes through the loop, the stone is faced already. And then from there, I'm going to take this, well, before I get to the 24 gauge wires, I'll take the 20 gauge wire and then wrap it around the neck of the loop. And then with the tip here, I'm just going to curl that with the tip of the pliers inwards so that it's not poking out as best I can. And then the same thing with this 20 gauge wire. Since it's pointing down, we're just gonna curl it upwards and then tuck it in. And then from here, we can continue just wrapping around the neck. You want to try to continue a trend of, if you start at the top, work your way down towards the bottom. I like to do that, although sometimes it can be also possible to start at the bottom and work your way up. But for me, if we have too much wire and we're going up, then we start to cross into the loophole and start to cover that up a little bit. And I don't want to do that. So I start at the top and spin around downwards. And then this is where the tip ends right here, so I'll just gently tuck that in so it's not poking out. And then with the final 24 gauge wire, I'll just continue to wrap around where I left off. And also, you want to wrap this pretty tight, because if it's loose, then it will hang out, and if the pendant, when you're wearing it, if it gets caught on something, then it will pull all these wires out, and you obviously don't want to do that. It will become undone. And then we'll finish off by just gently curling the tip, tucking it in. This one's a little bit stubborn, so I'm just being gentle and taking my time with it. All right, so it's pretty tucked in there. And we could stop here, although this bottom wire is pretty loose. As you can see, there's a gap there. A little bit of a gap, not too bad, but just to tighten that up, we're gonna finish with some style by curling like a little wave or a zigzag at the bottom there, and that tightens it up. And this stone is locked in, it's not going anywhere. And this one is a little bit wavy too, so I'll just go ahead and style that one out too. It looks pretty good. That's how you do that.